So let's make sure we can serve that image and in the future also accept image uploads. Now for serving that image, we have to make sure we serve that images folder statically. At least this is the approach I want to use. You learned all about that in my file uploads and downloads module, and the general logic there still applies. So check that out to learn more about that. In app.js, I want to set up static serving of my images folder. For that, up there, after I registered my body parser, I'll use another middleware, and I will do that for any request that goes to /images. Here, I'll use a middleware built into Express, the static middleware, which I use by calling the static function. And now I want to serve my images folder. For that, let's import the path package, the core path package Node provides. And then here we can use path join to construct an absolute path to that images folder. By using the special dir name variable, which is available globally in NodeJS and gives us access to the directory path to that file, to the app.js file. And in that same location as this app.js file, we find the images folder, so we can pass images as a second argument, and path join will construct an absolute path to this images folder. And that is the folder we'll serve statically for requests going to /images. With that, we should be able to use our image in the front-end code or to see it. If we save that server-side code, to view the image on the front end, however, we'll need to be able to click View here, because the image will only be included on the detail page. And that, however, will not work because we need a route to serve a single post, which we don't have yet. So we'll have to postpone this. It will actually be what I work on next. But before we do that, I want to set up proper error handling. In the feed controller, right now, when I catch an error here, I log it. And there, when I validate the input, I return an error response manually. You can do that. And you could also return your own error response down there. But you learned that you can set up a general error handling function in express.js. And I want to use that function. Now, how do I use it though? Let's maybe start with validation. Instead of returning a function manually here, I will create a new error object with new error. And the message I set up here is the message I'll pass to my error object. I'll then also add my own custom property, which you can name however you want, and I'll name it status code and set this to 422. Now, I will throw that error, and I can remove that return statement. Now, what does throwing an error do here? It will automatically, since I'm not doing this in an asynchronous code snippet or anything like that, it will automatically exit the function execution here and instead try to reach the next error handling function or error handling middleware provided in the Express application. We also got another possible error, and that is in here if something goes wrong with storing the post. There, I don't want to log the error. Instead here, I will check if my error has a status code field, which it will not have. But theoretically, if I had more complex code where I throw my own errors, there might be some error that has it. So I check if that exists. And if it does not exist, hence the exclamation mark here, if it does not exist, I will add it. And I will set my status code to 500 then, because it's some server-side error. Now you learned that since I'm inside of a promise chain, so inside of an async code snippet, throwing an error will not do the trick. This will not reach the next error handling middleware. Instead, you have to use the next function here and pass the error to it. And this will now go and reach the next error handling express middleware. Now the last step is that we register that middleware. And we do so in app.js. There, let's go all the way to the bottom after all my routes here. And let's use a new middleware which has this error handling definition of getting an error as the first argument and then request, response, and next. This will be executed whenever an error is thrown or forwarded with next. And here I want to log it so that we as a developer can see what's wrong in an easier way. And then I'll extract my status code here from error status code, so from that error object. I'll extract my message from error.message. This property exists by default and it holds the message you pass to the constructor of the error object. And now I can return an error or a response with the status code of the status I extracted. And we can set this to a default value of 500 with this syntax, by the way. So in case this should be undefined, it will now take 500. So we return this status code. And we use JSON data, of course, where I have a message of the message I extracted. And now I have this general error handling functionality, which should work, which I can quickly validate by going to my feed routes and changing that validation logic again to 7 for the title as a minimum length. And now let's try to enter a title that is not long enough. And let's see if we now still see an error. We do. We still get that error being thrown with the right status code. So this works even though I'm now using my custom error handling function, which is a bit of a more elegant way of handling errors now. So this is working. Let's now move on to creating the route for getting a single post so that we can finally also see if we can see our image.